Artistic Gamer 7, and welcome back to some more Sims 4 builds, in particularly haunted builds. So, this build was actually a little bit different. It's part of the reason why I chose this location. So when I was looking for locations this time, I was trying to mainly look at like really well-known ones and like some pretty popular ones for the rest of them. I mean, St. Albans is actually pretty well known, but I don't think it's known up there compared to some other things like the St. Augustine Lighthouse, Waverly Hills, Alcatraz. I could go on. The Stanley Hotel, is that what it's called? But anyway, I partially started with that one as like actually recreating because of the fact that I actually was pretty close to it and I knew quite a bit about it, just because the fact that it was close to me sort of made me actually interested in it in the first place. Like, it's the only one that I could probably realistically visit at any time if I really wanted to try. So that's why I started with that one. But when looking for this one, I definitely wanted to do something small. Partially because St. Albans took so long and I was about to go stir crazy with that one. And I wanted a smaller one that didn't take me as long, so that one, I would get it done completely before Wednesday, and I would have like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, depending on what I'm doing, to potentially also work on the next build. Because for this one, because the way things worked out, I literally only had Monday and Tuesday. I ended up only working on this on Tuesday because I went and done research and looked into it and picked a place on Monday and then decided to build it on Tuesday. So yeah, I wanted to have some more time for the next one, and like, I really sort of wanted to do the St. Augustine Lighthouse, because if I don't do the building beside it and I was just to make the lighthouse, it wouldn't be that big. But the thing with the lighthouse is it's actually rounded. It's not and that's not a feature that we technically have in The Sims. We can't do rounded walls, and it eventually slowly gets narrower as it goes up. So the best I could probably potentially do is build in Brindleton Bay next to the lighthouse and build the building that's supposed to be beside the or at least part of the lighthouse. It's beside it, but it's probably, you know, part of the whole complex or whatever. But anyway, that's probably the closest I can get for that one. And like, there's like quite a few U.S. ships that were like Navy ships, and like the Queen, what is it, the Queen Anne or the Queen Mary? Which one is it? Or is both of them haunted? I don't know. But yeah. So those ones are almost going to be like impossible to build in Sims with the current stuff that we have. And this was almost impossible, well, not really impossible, but it was a little bit harder than I thought it was. So this is, you may have already seen me struggling, and because it actually wasn't a build that took that long, I actually left in more than I probably would have if it had been a longer build. But this is actually a bridge. So when I mainly was looking at places in the US just because I'm familiar with the US, and right now I was trying to keep it to small, and I know a lot of the more popular, like, more noted places that are haunted in other locations tend to be pretty sizable from what I've seen. So I figured if me being in the US and me going to search for places outside of the US that were haunted, I'd probably get a lot of huge locations. One place I am considering is Rose Hall, which is in Jamaica, I think, because I've seen that one quite often. And even before I started the series, I sort of wanted to recreate that building just because I really liked the outside of it. So that one might be a potential one that I know that I'll potentially do that is not in the US. But yeah, I was basically trying to stick to small this time. But definitely feel free to leave me any buildings, like any places that are haunted, down below as a suggestion, as long as they're not insanely huge. I am not building another sanatorium, asylum, whatever. And probably prisons, for the most part, are going to be in that as well. Some jails, because there's like a difference in between jails and prisons. Some jails are not as big, so maybe those, but prisons tend to be big, so I don't know about those. That's really huge, complicated builds. And there's a difference in between huge, complicated builds and huge, not so complicated builds. My famed trio mansion, huge build, not really complicated. St. Albans, huge build, very complicated. But anyway, back to this one. So yeah, I had some struggles trying to figure out how to create this bridge because of some of the limits that we have in Sims. One, I have to use the fountain thing or the pool thing to be able to get water to run through there. And it can't go through walls. Like, you can't have a wall built up around the fountain. Like, you can around a pool. But this bridge, in particular, actually is very shallow water. In fact, this water is deeper than a lot of the pictures I see of the water. It is... And it's probably depending on season also. A lot of the pictures that I see is fall time during this, so I actually took my screenshots during the fall as well. Just because that's a lot of the photos were popping up were during fall. Partially because it really looks really beautiful in fall. Like, the pictures, I've seen some that look like they probably were summer. Either way, the fall ones are absolutely beautiful. But before, I go on, I should probably mention what bridge this is. This is actually Poinsett Bridge. I think I'm saying that right. Poinsett Bridge in, Greenville County, or Greenville, South Carolina. It's apparently, like, towards the more topper half of it. And it is actually apparently the oldest bridge in South Carolina, and potentially the oldest, or at least one of the oldest, in the, like, southern eastern side of the U.S. So that's pretty interesting, but, yeah, so it's a bridge in South Carolina, and there's not, like, history-wise of, like, tragedy that I could find associated with this bridge. But because it is so old, that may be partially why there's not as much documentation, but, yeah, anyway. So yeah, the waters going through here, going back to what I was saying, are actually a little bit even more shallow than this, at least, like I said, again, at least the time of year that I was looking at most of the photos of. So that was a problem. And the foundation, you can't have archways going through foundations. This had an archway underneath it. That was, like, one of the, like, things that makes this bridge really beautiful, in all honesty, was this archway. And it was it's like a 14, 15 foot Gothic archway. I will say, like, I think overall structure and, like, themed look of the bridge is actually pretty spot on, except for a few details here and there. Obviously, I'm using random bits and pieces of things that technically don't go together, so the stonework doesn't 100% match with what I use on what I ended up having to do to make this bridge. And the coloring of the actual bridge is actually a little bit darker than either one of these. The walls that I am putting in, that I have to go through the basement floor to do, but the walls that I put in, they are pretty close to the color. I think it's still a little bit darker than that, but then obviously the archway that I use is lighter, but there's no colors for either one of these for me to choose from. So, yeah. But, ultimately, it still is a decorative arch, and the fact that this bridge, though, is actually in pretty good condition, all things considered, it does have some pieces falling off here and there. Like, it's not 100% the way it was when it was first built. So it works, because, these pieces technically were sort of broken a little bit and things like that. So it still works, it's just not... The color and some of the details are off. I think, like, if you were to see my photos of St. Albans and then the photos of actual St. Albans from a distance, they would look almost exactly like the same building from the outside anyway. This one, because of the coloring, and maybe it's just me because I'm a big color person, you would probably notice it a little bit quicker, like, as you wouldn't have to get as close to the photo to start realizing. Still, overall, I'm actually still very happy, because I didn't realize how much of a struggle it actually was to do some of the things that I needed and wanted to do for this. So, and I will say, like, I wish that we had, like, yeah, they added the terrain tool, but we also used to have a water feature as a part of the terrain tool, where if we made parts that were lower and dipped in, we could just fill it in with water. I wish that would come back. I loved that feature. I loved making ponds and, like, little things like that. I also hate with the terrain tool that the terrain around the lot doesn't move. So I will say, like, this lot, I am going to be putting it up on the gallery. I built it in Granite Falls, and I think it's going to be as a national park, but you can easily put it as, like, a regular park or generic. I add a picnic table and a grill to it so that it is technically a national park. But yeah, so you could use it if you want. I think I wouldn't mind actually keeping this to, like, take photos at, just because it is sort of pretty. For screenshots and maybe create some stuff that I do in the future. So I probably might actually use this again, because I actually was still really happy with it, even though it wasn't like 100% exact, and obviously I had to put a trim around the fountain to try to make it look a little bit more natural, but it's still not 100% natural, and I added a bunch of rocks and stuff, but I still think it's pretty. So I was really happy with it, and excited to actually see the outcomes of this once I was finished. And this bridge was actually built all the way back into 1820, so that's like 200 years ago that this bridge was built, and it is still, again, still standing, and it's actually still in pretty decent condition. Obviously not perfect condition, not conditions of when it was first built, but all things considered, it's 200 years old and still doing well. It used to be a part of like one of the main roads and things like that. It's not, obviously not used as a road anymore. It is more of like a local spot to actually go check out. The locals and visitors to the area alike commonly go here as like a thing to do and visit and stuff like that. So it's like a nice little spot. There is, I did read somewhere after I added the picnic table and stuff, that there actually is places to like picnic and stuff like that, so it actually works. I don't know where those are at, because all the photos I've seen, I didn't see any of them. I put it up above where I put the stairs, because there is stairs in one of the pictures, which I know the stairs come from the street, because there is a street that you have to cross to get to this place, and I'm assuming across the street is where you park, because some of the ghostly things involve cars. But, so you have to walk across the street and then down these stairs that they made to get here. So you can actually come visit here. Photos are this is often used as an actual photo spot a lot. I've seen a lot of people doing like couples photos here and things like that, because I've seen a bunch of photos like that. Again, majority of them in the fall, but it's really pretty, so I don't blame them. The bridge actually is like registered or placed in the National Register of Historic Places. This was done in 1970, so it's been like a historic place for a while now, like considered one. And that's probably why, you know, that's like actually a tourist site and things like that, and like just a local spot and stuff. But it actually even has like a marker, which I have to pull this up because, or I had this pulled up because there's no way I was going to remember to say this. But there's a marker placed in front of it, which I use a tombstone to represent the marker. Just, it's the best I could do. So ignore that it's a tombstone. Think of it as a marker that says a historical fact on it. So this bridge on the state road from Greenville to Asheville was built in 1820 by Abram Blanding. I'm probably saying that wrong. Acting Commissioner, Board of Public Works. Joe R. Poinsett, President Marker, placed by Nathaniel Green, Chapter Daughter of American Revolutions. That is what the marker says. I do know the guy that they named it after was like actually like one of the first like ambassadors, or what became to be considered an ambassador to Mexico. So, and like there was a few other things that he did, but the Joel R. Poinsett is who the bridge is named after. But yeah, so that is the marker. That's what's said on the marker that comes as you get close to the bridge. Now that, obviously, as you'll see as the video goes on, this area is quite heavily wooded, as I could see in the pictures. Like, you could still see, like, the dirt road or whatever. I used, like, a gravelish dirt, and technically it looks like a sandy dirt. But I partially used a gravel dirt because it was a little bit gray, so there definitely seemed to be, like, some gravel mixed in there. There's certain areas I've been in South Carolina, and some of those areas, the old roads and things like that, look very similar to the old roads around here. And a lot of times those are gravel, so that's sort of what I went with. And plus, not to mention what I had to use on the bridge, because I actually did have flooring on the bridge. Had to be like stonework to make it make sense, because the way that I had to build the bridge, dirt would have looked weird. But basically, like, obviously there is stone there, but I could tell by the pictures that dirt has over time just sort of went over top of the whole bridge. Or, you know, maybe part of the bridge is just the ground and they've built the stonework around the ground. But either way, I couldn't get that exact. Obviously, there's no way to get fully exact, but I'm doing what Sims can give me, and I use no CC, so I'm literally using what I can get from The Sims. Now, obviously, this is a haunted place that I am building here, so what is the haunted tales that go along with this? So most of the stuff is reported around at night, And I couldn't really find, like, any, like I was saying, there was no, like, necessarily tragedies that I could find that happened on the bridge. But it is an old bridge, and where it looks like, even though it was probably, like, it seemed to be a pretty big road or a main road at one point in time, it's still out in the middle of woods. So easily stuff could have happened there, things could have happened, and not known. And things could have maybe even happened before the bridge was technically even placed there. Who knows? Just because there's no, like, documented things that I can find of stuff that happened there, doesn't mean the stuff didn't happen. And maybe I just wasn't looking in the right places also. But anyway, so on to the ghostly stuff. So there is quite a bit of stuff that is reported here. I did mention, like, this where people park their cars, and that there was stuff involving the cars. Apparently a very common thing that is reported, that when you go to leave, a lot of people have problems starting their car. So that their car just doesn't seem to start no matter what. Just something is going on with the car, and it doesn't make sense. It won't start up at first, but then eventually it starts up fine. There's been I've read instances of a lot of lights of different colors, and there isn't any, like, residential places or really any street lamps, anything near the bridge, technically, like, other than that parking area. And I don't even know, like, I didn't see pictures of it, so for all I know, it's a parking area that is also a gravel sort of area. I know near where I live, there's a, like, sort of natural place, like, it's a waterfall. And it's actually really well known around the area and stuff like that, and a lot of people go and travel to it. And the parking place for it, though, apparently they've recently redone it, so I don't know if it's still gravel, but it was like gravel. It was just a gravel parking place. Like, it was a place to park and go visit this place and go walk around and hike and things like that, which you can do around this area as well. So it may be some parking like that, I don't know, because I haven't been here. But, so, yeah. But there isn't, I've read several things where it's like, there's no, like, actual light source close enough by to when you're at the bridge that you should be seeing light. And the light apparently appears of sometimes different colors. White, green, red are the often ones I've seen. They act oddly and strangely. There was one thing I read where the light actually sort of came towards the car, and then they heard a scream. And then that's when their car finally would start back up. That would terrify the crap out of me if that was what had happened to me. There's even been people that have felt touched. There's been mist-like shapes. One thing I didn't see, which is a common thing with hauntings, is shadows. So I didn't read anything that people reported any shadows or anything like that. It's all more of light and mist, so it's more on the opposite side of shadows. And some of the mist have even been a humanoid shape when they seen them. Apparently the most common ones, though, are the lights. So the different colored light play and the strange light anomalies and screams. So, you know, lovely screaming. I would be more okay with, I think, a ghost, like, touching me than a scream. I don't know why. A scream would probably make me scream before someone touching me. I think if a ghost touched me, like, I would smack at that spot where they touched me, just because that's, like, some reflex I have. Doesn't matter what it is. If I don't know something's there, it could be a real human being. If I just don't know they're there, I'm gonna smack. So, but yeah, like, I could look over and not see and be like, oh, okay, well, maybe it was this, or maybe it's that, and if not that, okay, fine. But if it was a scream, then that's, like, super startling to me. And also, usually screams are associated with more tragic things or bad things that happen, so then I just also get into that mindset. If they're touching me, then it's like, usually it's more of a situation like they want to let you know they're there. So I don't find that as creepy as a scream, because a scream means something bad probably happened to them at some point in time, and that's just sort of sad to think about. But the screams are often heard on top of the bridge. There is voices heard underneath the bridge, like where the archway is. So the screams are mainly coming on the top, and just normal talking or conversations is, like, on the bottom. You'd almost think it would be reversed, because I feel like if there was tragic stuff, it'd be, like, a car or whatever mode of transportation it was going over the bridge and something happening that way. But who's to also say there wasn't some sort of collision on top of the bridge and they never fell off the bridge? So I guess, whatever. It could be, but I would have thought the screams would be under the bridge or near the creek, personally. But, whatever. There's also been noises of movements heard around the bridge and even, like, where people are parking. So even before they even get to the bridge, there's a lot of noises. But again, a lot of this is basically mainly at night. This is, like, one of the locations where it's almost like two different places when you go to it. Go to it during the day, it's like nothing's happening. Go to it at night, and all of a sudden everything's happening. So, and one of the sites that I actually found that talked about this actually has several people's eyewitness testimony, or whatever you want to call it, their personal experiences. A lot of them, again, are the same things, similar things, and same things over and over again. The problems with the cars, the lights, the mist, the screams, things like that. But a lot of them are locals, and then some of them are non-locals. A lot of them say they've been up there several times, and it never seems to fail. If you go up there at night, something is going to happen. So it seems to be a very paranormal, active place. Like I said, I found it on like 2 or 3 sites, and it was some of the first ones I came to. So it was some of the newer sites, so it may be like a location that is getting newly discovered as a haunted site. I don't know, but it's not on, like, there's some places that were on almost every site that I found. It wasn't one of those, but I thought it was definitely interesting, and the fact that there is so many haunted reports popping up about this bridge, and it seems like the locals know about the bridge quite well, and even some people are traveling to it if they're in the area. Considering South Carolina's not too far from me, I actually probably could easily get to this place, but it would have to be like a planned trip that was like 2-3 days or whatever, so I couldn't just go to it willy-nilly, but it wouldn't take me too long, so, it'd be interesting to go here. I would want to go to a lot of haunted places, but this one would definitely be different, and I thought it was interesting to try to build, because it's a bridge. It's not actually a building. I will say the ceiling annoys me underneath there, but we just won't talk about the ceiling. That, you can't change anything about. So yeah, I thought it was a fun little challenge. Like, I knew that once I started going, it would be an easier build than an asylum, but it'd also be different, fun, and challenging, and I really had a lot of fun with this build. And I even done some screenshots of me and my friend Sim sort of going to take some photos of this place, and there may be some little spooks hiding in the background that my Sim and her friends didn't know were there. But it was a lot of fun building this build. Let me know down in the comments below what you think about this build. If you happen to know this place and you have any stories from it, please tell me down in the comments below. I'd love to hear your stories. Feel free to, again, suggest any haunted places. I can't guarantee, but I definitely will look at them. There's already some that I'm thinking about, but I'm not 100% sure yet. Still sort of deciding what I'm going to do next. So, and the thing is I probably will continue the series at least into November. I know November's no longer spooky season, but just so that I can at least have a few builds in this playlist to begin with, I'm going to go a little bit further than October, probably. Again, hope you enjoyed the build and the video. If so, hit that lovely like button, subscribe, all that lovely YouTube goodiness. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you're enjoying the series, and I hope you look forward to next week's haunted build, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye!